Hello, everybody. Randy Bufford here. And yes, I am coming to you in a more detailed Great Places to Work. Our spring 2023 survey results are in, and I thought I would take an opportunity to describe not only just the results, but go through some additional details. And then, last but certainly not least, more importantly, talk to you about how the comments, which I think are the incredible hidden gold in these surveys, are used as an organization to improve your employee experience. But first and foremost, since we're talking about results, we need to go to the results and kind of some of the high level things. And of course, an 87 was the actual award, up from the score, up from an 83 in the fall survey. And that's just an outstanding result. And as you'll see on the screen, that is equivalent to a Fortune 100 Best Places to Work score. That may not qualify for 2023, even though we're hopeful, because scores increase as organizations get better. But we're certainly aiming for the top, and this is a great first step. And then more importantly, I'll be showing some information where we did well. And, there are a lot of scores that are very, very positive. In fact, several that are above the Fortune 100, and those are always heartwarming. And these are around our camaraderie, feeling safe at work, those kind of things, people caring about each other. And boy, those are some outstanding results that you're going to be seeing here on the screen. It's just outstanding. But more importantly, there's some other metrics that I want to go through before we talk about where we can get better, because that's what these surveys are about. It's twofold, I guess. First and foremost, if we're doing well at something, you want to continue to do that well and you want to improve upon it. But more importantly, I tend to look towards the area of opportunities where we're not doing as well, and in this case, not doing well as perhaps our peers and the Fortune 100, because that's our standard. We want to be at that level as far as your employee experience. But more importantly, there's a couple metrics that I thought were rather interesting, and I'll put those up on the screen. The first is we're pretty trustful under the trust index and the scoring in terms of our tenure in the organization. There's not a wide variation, from 0 to 12 months. That's 90 is our score, which is outstanding, but pretty much the rest of the bands of age, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and above 10 are all in that 87 scoring range. And that's a good thing. That tells me that even if you've been here a long time, you're still valuing and trusting us on this trust index, and that's important. A lot of times we actually do get that. You see the 90 score for our newer employees because they come from organizations that have not the things that we do and are not as good. So they're like, wow, this is great. I should have come to Synchrony a long time ago. And then as the tenure goes along, it's just human nature. We get more used to our work environment, and maybe, the new things that we're doing aren't appealing to you, and so forth. We sometimes see some degradation in that scoring, but that's not happened here, so that's a good thing. The other nice thing that's really heartwarming on demographics is there's really no difference on how you view the employee experience, whether you're a male or female. And that's very important to us, that those scores are in the range of being equivalent, and certainly they are. In fact, the male scored in at 88. There's less of us here, just from a general practical standpoint, more women in the business, but the women are right there at 87, which is our overall score. So all those are really good things demographically, and just in terms of things to build upon. And I love that in the top 5 scores that our employees care about each other, because those are the kind of the core values that we want to see in an organization, and we have them. Now, as I looked at some of the opportunities for improvement, I'm going to focus on a couple of those before I go to the comments. And I think the first and foremost one that we're well aware of, and we have some programming directed at this, I am offered training or development to further myself professionally, was our lowest score in comparison to the Fortune 100 companies. And this is an area of significant investments that we'll be making this year and from a go-forward basis. Very candidly, we don't have the training and development programs at the level we want them. We are currently in transition on a few of these things, and we've been talking to you about some of the apprenticeship efforts we're going to be making, some of the CEU efforts we're going to be making, those kind of things, and look for more details. But again, this also tells me from a validity standpoint that we have listened to you all in the past. We know this is an issue for us. It is here again. And some of the comments actually go directly to this. So great information. Look for more news out on that. Then we also have a few others around promotions are being paid fairly, and our pay and so forth. Of course, we have growth sharing plan to try to move us closer to the score, which we're right almost there. 77% trust index versus 78 for the top 100s. But that promotional difference on fairness is something that we want to do because we want to be clear that in everything we do, we're being equitable. And that's very, very important. Last but certainly not least, you can see some comparisons over the company as it people look forward to coming to work here. And we just have some outstanding results. I mean, we're almost right there with the Fortune 100. And so, again, we're kind of quibbling. When we tie with the Fortune 100, there aren't going to be some that we're above. There's going to be some that we're below, but most are going to be in the range, and that's what we found here, and I think you'll see that. Last but certainly not least, we'll point out one further detail. We have high trust from 84% of our employees, and I'll be putting this metric and this chart up there, but our goal is to earn high trust from everybody. Now you say, what's the differential on the 84 between the 87? Well, that has to do with questions that great places to work deem are high trusting and that they look for. And these go to, the comment about taking into everything account. It's a great place of work, as well as, I plan to be here for a while, are the kind of the two drivers of that little block there. And again, our goal is to make that for everybody. We want everybody to feel comfortable at work. We want everybody to stay around for a long time. That's our secret sauce, is our employee retention. Now, what's going to take a little bit longer to go through here, but one that I did want to talk to you about, is a little bit about the process on how we use this information, and more importantly, just kind of give you some thematic things that I saw in the my review of the comments. And I actually paid more attention to the comments that were suggestive around name the one thing you would do to improve the quality of the employee experience at Synchrony, some advice you've given on communication, plus other things kind of where I dove in. But first and foremost, what we do is this is built up business unit by business unit. Now, if there are more than 5 surveys, which we need that amount to ensure confidentiality, we get data on what you said. So even at a local therapy department, if we have enough people, we can kind of tell what's going on there around wellness. We get the comments that are attributed to those locations. Again, 100% confidential. So we look at our overall score and we say, well, that's great, but we have to go into each business unit and vertical and figure out how well we're doing. We may have, for example, a pharmacy that scores 90, at the very highest level. And then we may have one that scores at 70. Well, that looks like an 80 average. And so we need to pay more attention to the 70 in the comments and the different responses to the various questions. And so it is built up that way. We will be communicating back to each and every one of you around your particular business location. You'll hear from us on what the scoring was, the participation, which was very high, as you well know, and then more importantly, what came out of the comments, and then what are we going to do, action plan about the scoring and the comments to improve the employee experience. And that's done very formally, and that will be sent to each and every one of you via Ready app. And then from an overall standpoint, you're hearing communications just like myself. And from time to time, as we're addressing some of these more macro issues, we'll refer back to what you told us. And as we're planning and we're doing some, work on benefits, for example, which a great deal of the comments this year were around benefits, we will reference back to these comments. Now, how do we do that? There are over 2,000 comments, and that's not including the great nominations or, recognition for those hidden heroes and so forth that are in the survey. How do we do that? Well, it seems daunting, but candidly, because all those are now in writing and they're in a machine-driven format where we can kind of group those. And so all the ones related to benefits, for example, will be grouped. And then as we look through those, if there are commonalities around benefits, and different, we'll group those even further down so we can build consensus on what some of the areas for improvement. And that's just one example. Continuing education, career development, those are another area. So we'll group those comments across the questions and the written feedback. And then we will actually look further to those other comments and kind of the ones about specific work conditions at a specific location, for example. And those are grouped by that location. And those are also grouped so we can understand if there's leadership issues, work environment issues, you name it. In fact, I just reading through the things, there's probably a couple compliance issues where somebody's reporting in on something that they didn't think was appropriate. And so those are all addressed. But we do it by breaking it down into what I would call snackable kind of themes and so forth, and sorting those out. And fortunately, because we get the comments in a written format in a file, we can do that relatively. It's not easy. It does take some detailed work by our team member services and your leadership as they engage in reviewing those, but that's a good part of the process. Now, out of those comments, I think several themes emerged, and first and foremost was around benefits. And we have some continuing, ongoing things around benefits. For example, there used to be a CU benefit in our therapy company that no one else had, and we eliminated that a few years ago. That's not coming back. What is coming back is more access to CUs, and some training programs pay attention to that. But more importantly, on benefits, there were some questions around PTO. And if you'll remember, a couple years ago, we looked at PTO and how it was used for our hourly employees, and pretty much everybody was not using the full amount as a PTO benefit. They were taking it as cash. So we reduced our benefit just a little bit and gave everybody a raise for that amount of the benefit that kind of went away. It was a swap. And so now some people are already forgetting that they got a raise outside our normal cost of living and our QWI for that benefit. But that to a new employee, our base wages are probably, you're looking at that and saying, well, I accepted the base wage to come in. I didn't get that. And that's exactly right. Base wages went up for everybody as an organization. And so that's kind of built in there. But understand how PTO works, understand the policy. I could tell from looking at some of the comments that we need to do more education on that PTO policy. Last, in the area of benefits, and there are some great suggestions, we're always looking to improve, but there's been a lot of change this year that is sponsored by our parent company, Trilogy. And so what it also told me is some of those changes are not well understood. Some were not well received. People like to keep it the same way. Unfortunately, it is changed. And so we're going to be working diligently to make sure that we can understand and educate each and every person and try to figure out, where the pain points are with the new benefits. And this includes our lifestyle spending account, which is just starting on April 1st. And of course, I got to throw out the parental leave benefit April 1st. There's not much comments about it. I mean, that's a net positive, but there will be people wanting to understand those policies and so forth. Also, some questions as it related to other changes, the HSA account moving over to Bank of America for that, and the 401k. We had an app for this, now we have an app for that. Transition on these things, very difficult. I know the team member services and employee services at Trilogy contemplated all of these things, but again, it just lets me know that we need to work more diligently for each and every one of you as it relates to benefit education, allowing access, and when there's pain points in the system, we need to learn how to use those. And it's just similar to our STARS program as it changed. Okay, we lost some ability to do some things, including buying uniform shirts and what have you. And, in those Trilogy facilities or accessing the Trilogy program, you can also trade in. You used to be able to do that STARS for slacks and so forth. So bringing all of those kind of pain points to bear, which were mentioned in the comments, is important to understand. Also, pricing of benefits is always an issue, especially spousal coverage. And that's a very tricky one because adding on spouses is not a benefit that everybody needs or can access. So keeping the single coverage as low as we possibly can is always high on the radar screen. And there were actually several comments about people who had access for their spouse where they were capable of the exchanges, and they found a better outcome there. And I always encourage that. to see, because depending upon your situation as an employee, there may be actually tax credits for a spouse involved by going to the exchange. So lots of education on benefits, a lot of transition things, including understanding pain points on something just as simple as the wellness rate. This year was a changed process. We used to have people come out to the facilities at the Trilogy sites, not the elite sites, but we do our biometrics and so forth. And it was much more easy to navigate. And so again, your comments are being heard loud and clear around benefits. And that's, probably the bulk of the comments that we heard in there were about benefits, level of benefits, continuing education, confusion around benefits, Virgin Pulse, and oh yes, since I mentioned it in my other video, having to pay tax on certain of these benefits. That's something that just we cannot get away from. So lots of things in the comments around benefits. Secondarily, I think there are a fair number of comments where you're giving advice, and you're giving in management and leadership advice, and we love those, and telling us ways that we can improve our business. Now, in this video, there's not a lot of time, enough time, because people will quit listening to me drone on, to go through all of those. But I think the overall theme is you like the mission, vision, and values of our company, and you want to see that reflected in our leaders. And that is an absolute requirement. And are we perfect on that? Heck no. Heck no. I'm not perfect on that. Excuse me. Even occasionally, I have a bad moment and so forth as a leader, and that's the frailty of human nature. But your heart has to be in the right place. And so again, we have that information by location. And by the way, the great news is we have some rock star leaders. We also have some other leaders that aren't exhibiting it as it's being told. And I understand there's two sides to every story, but we look at all the data, we look at everything that maybe aren't exhibiting those best behaviors. And you have my commitment that we'll be working specifically on those. And you also should understand that we've made some changes in leadership that have been viewed as a net positive by our employee groups. And we've seen the employees reward us for making those changes. Now, I've done this a long time, and these are always very difficult decisions and things that we need to make around leadership and leadership behaviors, but you are owed the right treatment out of your leaders. And so again, we're listening to you. We will take action. There's more involved in it than just, you suggesting and a change happens. These are people, families, careers, you name it. And so we're always going to start with coaching. We're always going to start with investing in our people and their leadership and their awareness around how they lead. But that was the second behind benefits, with suggestions that we need to do that. Now, the third area, we asked specific questions around communications, and we got kind of a mixed bag of some positives, and I'll leave you with that, and some negatives. And so that's probably pretty good, overall positive. But what we're seeing through some of the communication trends is Ready App is not being consistently used as it relates to how we want Ready App to be used. And Ready App to us is more of a vertical on how we communicate to you on these important things like we're talking about here: employee surveys, benefit matters, wellness, recognition, STARS programs built in there. It's also your portal where you can go access all of our policies around our benefits and kind of the employee experience vertical. Some places are using it as the day-to-day business communications. They're just firing out, lots of different things around the business, what's going on, and, they need this eval done here, or they need this RX filled, and so forth. That's not really the mechanism we want to be using for that, because if you use Ready App too much for the business stuff, people tune it out for the real important stuff. And so we want to reserve that vertical. Having said that, we need to figure out better ways to communicate if Ready App's not going to be that. And so there are some good suggestions for from each and every one of you that commented on how potentially to do that, and how to do that in a HIPAA secured way, for example, within our communities and in our various departments and verticals. So great advice on communication. And then, last but not least, just some fabulous nominations and recognition. I'm challenging the team to make those known where they're happening and use those as part of our recognition. Those hidden heroes that we ask for advice. The worst thing we could do is have you recognize somebody and have us not let them know that happened through this survey. Now, we won't know it was you recognizing them unless you actually gave us your name in the survey, which I did not see much of that. I saw a few names names in there, but it was more people talking about somebody else. But again, we will use that information because we actually know it's in there, and we can see the words and comments and look for something very appropriate and special to happen around that recognition. And we thank each and every one of you for taking that extra time to recognize a leader or a coworker, just somebody who's really doing some good stuff, because that's what it's all about here at Synchrony. Good stuff, doing the right things for the right reason, so forth. So as I said to start off, it's a big responsibility, an 87, an incredible score, but goes along with that we need to continue to build on that. But the bigger responsibility is you all have taken the time to write comments, to score us in what is literally about 75 plus questions, and to give us some ideas about how we can improve your exploring experience. And we're going to do that. So long video, but I thought it was worthy, given the amount of comments and so forth, to describe to you not only, how we do what we do with the feedback, some of the big themes that are going on, investing in you, number one, benefits, number two, some communication ideas and some getting better in that area as well. And last but not least, leading you appropriately to earn even better and more incredible scores in the future. So take care. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out. We don't have to wait till twice a year. If we can help you on your employee experience, let us know. God bless.